Good day, Junior Techies. I'm Mrs. Brimiko. We are now going to look at Chapter 8, Inventories. And the first thing that we're going to look at is Activity 1. Porky pork. We buy the best quality pork from local farmers and sell frozen pork pieces at the lowest prices. The information relates to Porky Pork for the year ended 28 February 2022. The business makes use of the periodic inventory system and value their stock according to first in, first out method. Now, it's important to understand that we have different inventory systems. We've got the periodic inventory system and the perpetual, or another word for that, continuous. Within those two systems, we can value our stock using either first in, first out, weighted average, or specific identification. In this activity, we are going to focus on first in, first out. Provide one advantage of both the periodic and the perpetual inventory system. So if we look at the periodic inventory system, it is cost effective. There is very little outlay for expensive equipment. It's feasible for a business where it's difficult to determine the cost of a single item. But if we look at a perpetual inventory system or continuous inventory system, stock theft are easily and quickly identified. Remember, with a continuous inventory system, all movement of trading stock is recorded in the trading stock account. Better control over stock. So these are advantages looking at a periodic and a perpetual inventory system. Now, if you look at the information and you look at the questions which is asked, there are normally typical questions which is asked in tests and exam. For example, calculate the value of your closing stock, calculate the cost of sales, calculate the sales, calculate the gross profit. So I'm going to show you how can I get all of those answers by looking at the trading account. And we look at the trading account using the periodic inventory system method. So in my trading account, using periodic inventory system, we would always have the opening stock on the debit side. So we're going to show the number of units, which is kilogram, and what was the total opening stock. Your opening stock will normally include your carriage on purchase as well, plus purchases. So now we need to look at all our purchases. March, the total cost per unit is 58. The number of units or kilograms is 480. So 480 times 58 equals the total purchase for March. But now there was carriage as well. So this means the carriage for March, they provided the total amount to you, 1,200. For July, the total number of kilograms, 500. Cost per kilogram, 62. So 500 times 62 equals, and the total carriage was equal to 1,350. For October, the total number of kilograms is 170, but now, very important, 10 kilograms was donated. So this means we need to take 170 minus 10. What was the cost? 68. That equals the total net purchase for October. When we work out our transport cost, we have to calculate it now on still what was the total amount that we have paid for transport. If we look at January, now very important to look at the information given. No refund on transport is given for any returns to the farmers. The farmers agreed that returns had to be made within 5 working days. So if I look at January, we purchased 140 kilograms. But on the 17th of January, 25 kilogram was returned. So to work out for January, we have to take 140 minus the 25. Cost per kilogram was 72 Rand in January. So 72 times 115 equals the total amount paid. There is no refund on the carriage, on the transport cost. So this means the total transport cost is going to be 1,680. Now we can calculate our net purchases and our carriage. The total number of net purchases is 78,000. The number of units is 1,255. If you add the carriage, that equals 5,896. Now, they provided us with the sales. They said it's 105 per kilogram and the total number of units sold is 1,500. So to work out the total sales, take per unit times the number of units. Now we can calculate our closing stock. To calculate our closing stock, we're going to take the opening stock plus purchases minus the number of units that were sold. So the closing stock equals 175. So now using FIFO, it means that first in, first out. So to calculate the value of our closing stock, we are going to start with the most recent purchases. So this means we need to start with January. So if there is 175 units left over, it means that all that stock from January is going to be included in our calculation for closing stock. So 115 times 72, but now be careful with the carriage. The carriage, that 1,680 included on 140 units. How many units are left over? 115. This means we need to calculate now by taking 1,680 divided by 140 means that 12 Rand was paid for transport per unit. 12 times 115 equals 1,380, which is the carriage. The total purchase plus the carriage equals 9,660. Now, to look at October, 175 minus 115 means that 60 units is left over, or kilograms, from the stock which was purchased in October. So this means 60 times, what was the cost? 68. And now we still need to account for the carriage. So to work out the carriage, we're going to take 60 times 1,666 divided by 170 units, because that was the number of kilograms or units that we purchased, to get the cost per kilogram, and then we times it by 60. So the total amount would then be those two added together, which equals 4,668. The total closing stock is then those two added together equals 14,328. So if we now want to calculate the gross profit, to calculate the gross profit, we're going to take the credit side minus the debit side, and that equals 64,152. So we took the sales plus closing stock minus opening stock minus purchases minus the carriage. So we can basically answer the majority of the questions that could possibly be asked in a test and exam by opening up the trading account. If you look at question 1.2, they say calculate the rand value of the closing stock. So by looking at the trading account, we've now calculated what is the closing stock. A reminder, we first had to calculate what is the number of units left over or kilograms. Then using FIFO, we need to start with our most recent purchases and work our way up. By looking at a trading account, another way, my apologies, not looking at the trading account, looking at your calculation. If you set 115 times and you've added those two together, it is 100% fine. The same with the 60. If you added the purchase plus the carriage and you say times 60, you would get exactly the same answer. Remember, there's no refund for carriage on purchases. This is why if you look at the carriage for January and for October, we had include the total unit purchase. In other words, the total carriage on purchases. To calculate the cost of sales, if you look at your trading account, we can use opening stock plus purchases plus carriage minus the closing stock equals the cost of sales. Or what you could have done, opening stock plus the purchases and carriage. So you use the totals because this is including the carriage. So it's for March plus July plus October plus January. But now you need to remember that 10 units were donated and 25 units were returned. Closing stock, we have calculated in question 1.2. Now we can calculate the cost of sales. Or if you look at the trading account, take the sales minus the gross profit, and that equals the cost of sales. You will get exactly the same answer. Prepare the trading account, and remember the question was based on a periodic inventory system. This means that you should know my end of my accounting period is 28 February 2022. Opening stock, purchases, carriage on purchase will always appear on the debit side. Sales and closing stock will always appear on the credit side. So now, if we take the credit side minus the debit side, we can calculate the gross profit, which will be taken to the profit and loss account. From question 1.2 and 1.3, we've already calculated opening stock plus purchases plus the carriage. We need to calculate the sales. They said that 105 kilograms was 105 rand per kilogram was the selling price. 1,500 kilograms was sold. That equals the total sales. Take the credit side minus the debit side. That equals the gross profit. To calculate the stock holding period, in other words, how long do we keep our stock? It is my opening stock plus closing stock divided by 2. So we can times it by a half. Divided by my cost of sales times 365 equals the number of days. An alternative method is if we look at our trading account, if we take our opening stock and our closing stock, we are going to say beginning plus end divided by 2. the number of units sold, which is cost of sales, cost of goods sold, the number of units sold, 1,500 times 365 days. So this is an alternative way in how to get the answer. To calculate the stock turnover rate, so how many times per year do we need to turn over our stock? We have to take the cost of sales divided by the opening stock plus closing stock divided by 2. This equals 4.9 times. An alternative, if you take the total number of units divided by beginning plus end divided by 2, that means 1,500 divided by 297.5, that equals 5 times. Question 1.7. The owner is concerned that the business is not achieving their intended markup. The business aimed to achieve a markup of 80% at all times. Calculate the markup percentage achieved on the sale of the pork. So to calculate the markup percentage, we have to take our gross profit divided by the cost of sales times 100. That equals our percentage markup. Question 1.8. Provide a reason why the business did not achieve their intended markup. Remember that they want to achieve a markup of 80% at all times. But now if we calculated that our markup achieved was only 68.7%. So reasons why we could not have achieved our end markup: too many cash discounts on the selling price granted to customers. They may have been holding too much stock and need to sell the pork below the intended markup percentage before the pork reaches its sell-by date. Another reason, due to load shedding, they needed to sell the pork and were forced to sell it for less than what the intended markup is. So these were possible reasons why did we not achieve our aimed markup. Take note how financial indicators is incorporated into inventories. The next question, 1.9, considering the type of product they buy and sell, which 2 stock control measures are essential to avoid possible legal action being taken against them? So if we look at what type of product we are selling, it's pork. So the pork must be kept frozen, both in the business and in transport process. The sell-by date must be indicated on all stock. Thank you very much. Next, we're going to look at activity 2. I want to leave you with this quote. Education is the key to unlock the golden door of freedom. Have a wonderful day.